Welcome to Maine, we're stretched to the bone. Prices keep rising, the paycheck stays prone. Inflation keeps knocking, won't leave us alone. They're selling the lie, groceries climbing, the gas tank is low. The bill's hitting harder than snow, but silence still blankets the truth. Where does it go? They're selling the lie. Housing is gridlocked from Portland to the county. Workers commute far past what feels soundly. Talk of solution comes yearly, not loudly. They're selling the lie.
Welcome to the Muddy Waters Podcast, where Mainers tell their stories, unfiltered.
Good morning, Maine. This is Chuck Ellis, and you are, as always, watching the Muddy Waters Podcast. And we are fortunate, as always, I shouldn't say as always, every Tuesday, essentially, to have with us Jon Fetherston of the Maine Wire to talk. Today is primary day. So thanks for joining us, Jon.
Thanks for having me, Chuck. A big, important day. If people haven't got out and to vote, they have until 8 o'clock tonight to get out and vote. And as I've been saying for many years, if you don't vote today, I don't want to hear your complaints tomorrow, because you have, how things go. But if you don't vote, you can't complain.
I agree. Especially, you can't complain about the candidate or candidates that we put forward and are on the ballot in November. So get out and vote. I've already done so myself. So I encourage everybody to get out there and vote for the candidate or rank if that's what you choose to do. I'm working really hard not to pick sides in this, although I have my own opinions and my own thoughts. If you are not opposed to ranked choice voting, rank as you see fit, and if you are, then just vote for your one candidate. But the number one thing that I would say, I've been saying all along, is vote for a candidate who you think has the best chance in a state like Maine to win a general election.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so easy to vote now. I am not a favor of early voting. I have zero problem with absentee ballot because, life happens, and I think, you do need to have absentee voting. But, I am a vote on election day type of guy. And like I said, the polls are open till 8 o'clock. I know people are busy and have, work a lot. But even if you're watching this podcast right now and you don't know who you're going to vote for, and you don't even know any of the candidates, you still have plenty of time to do your research and get to the polls. Typically primaries do not have great voter turnout. This primary, I think, is extremely important, not only from a gubernatorial standpoint, but, even from a senatorial campaign. Janet Mills has been reminding people that she's still on the ballot. And, if you want to vote for Janet Mills or Graham Platner today, you get to decide the future of Maine. I just say vote wisely,
Yeah, and that actually makes it kind of interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine that I know who's an independent, and they part of me thinks man, if we can keep Graham Platner on the ballot all the way through to November, I think that gives us an opportunity to use how, because we have to make the Democrats own that this is their candidate, right? That they have chosen to prove to us that they actually don't care about morality. They don't care about any of this stuff. What they care about is adherence to their radical agenda. And as long as you do that, everything else will be forgiven, including racist slurs, including, obviously all the stuff that we've talked about before. And so this one person who was an independent was like, man, I think I'm going to go and to get a Democrat ballot so I can vote to ensure that Platner is the one who wins. And I was like, It's an interesting strategy. I don't know that I would ever want to say that I voted for.
I don't know
guy.
that I subscribe to that strategy.
That's where I was like, I like the strategic thinking. I appreciate the strategic thinking. But I just don't think I could ever do that. Like, I would never want to, be able to, what if he ends up winning, right? And I, theoretically would have helped that happen. Obviously, I'm a registered Republican, so that doesn't matter for me. But anyway, but instead, I was encouraging this person to get a Republican ballot. But anyway, it's interesting.
But Chuck, people gotta really stand. And Ronald Reagan famously said this back in the 80s. We're one generation from losing America, and I think
really
we might be in that generation right now, because here's the reality: the Democrat Socialist Party, which is a fancy way of saying the Communist Party, is growing in popularity in this country, and it's something that I will even tell you the Republicans have been slow to react to, and the Democrat Party has even been slow to react to it. You look at what's happening in California, even with the mayoral race and the Senate race there. You're looking at you look at what happens in Bangor. You look at see what's happening in Lewiston. You look at see what has happened in Portland. The Democrat Socialist, once again, is the Communist Party. It's they don't have the courage to call it the Communist Party, but it is the Communist Party, is growing in popularity across the country, and certainly in Maine. A Republican, you're a libertarian, or you're an old school Democrat, and you're not seeing that, it's time to take a second look. I'm not going to say it's time to pay attention because, but it's time to take a second look and say, wow, how did we get here? Because a diehard Democrat, a Kennedy Democrat, do they want that? I don't think that they do. And you can see even with Graham Platner, the Me Too moment used to mean something, but it doesn't now because of Graham Platner. Respecting police officers used to mean something. It doesn't anymore because of Graham Platner. Graham Platner's tattoo is old enough to vote. He's had it long enough that it could vote because you could probably register anything to vote in Maine because you've got Shanna Bellows as your Secretary of State. But my point is, he knew it was a Nazi tattoo, and he thinks you're stupid enough to believe that he didn't know it was a Nazi tattoo. So you've got a guy who is a Nazi sympathizer, has referred to himself as a communist, a man who is abusive to women, a man who doesn't think cops are good people. He doesn't think black people tips. He thinks rural Mainers are stupid and that, lobstermen are bad people. But he's going to go to Washington and fight the oligarchy. But if you look at his campaign finance papers, he is the oligarchy. He has a lot of money coming in from out of state. He has a lot of, social media, big Hollywood, corporate lawyers maxing out to his campaign. He's a walking hypocrite, a pathological liar, but he is the future of the Communist Party. In Maine and America can make a real statement here. We've had enough of this, or this is more of what we want. I hope they say we've had enough of this and we don't need it anymore. But it's going to be interesting to tell.
Yeah, well, I hope a lot of Democrats get out and vote for Mills or that other person, David Costello. I think that would probably be my preference if somebody was going to go and vote a Democrat ballot. But yeah, I hope they demonstrate that this is not what they want.
What if Mills gets 30% today? What does that tell you? I don't think she will, but what if she does?
It tells you enough. I think it tells you that even the Democrats are not buying his crap. But I think what's more likely to happen is people not to vote. That's what I'm going to be very interested to see. Like, people are going to vote, right? Democrats are going to show up to vote in their primary for their gubernatorial candidate and stuff like that. But I would be interested to see if they all, how many of them leave the Senate, section blank. That'll be very interesting to see what happens. So, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I would be surprised to see them not vote.
Locations this morning, and all three have been pretty brisk.
Really?
So, I wouldn't say crazy, but I would say brisk. Yeah.
You mean brisk is like not many, right?
No, I mean like a steady flow of people. More people that
Okay.
I saw more people at all three locations this morning than I anticipated I would. So yeah.
Okay, that's good. I'd been hearing some similar things out of Wyndham and Westbrook, so good to hear. I mean, people are showing up. I think that's what's important. Make your voice heard. This, constitutional republic runs on civic engagement, so that's great. And we'll see what happens. We'll see who all of our candidates are across the board. Maybe not tomorrow or tonight, but we will know eventually. And that's one of the other fun things is like, what's it going to be like? Maybe a couple of weeks before we find out, who wins ranked choice. And we got somebody watching who says, "Good morning, I voted," which is great. Thanks, Stephanie. Are you still there, John? Your video disappeared, but
Yep, I'm here.
You're back.
Sorry.
Yeah, good. No, you're good. Busy guy. So that's get out and vote. The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit about, I wanted to thank you obviously for coming to the Cars, Candidates, and Cocktails event that we had last week, and not just coming, but also covering that and getting some publicity about what the Cumberland County Republicans event, what we did, and bringing the sword of truth. I was very excited that my wife got to hold. If anybody's wondering what my wife looks like, well, obviously, number one, you're not paying attention because she's like right here. Although that's not a very clear picture for most of you, but she is in the social media of the Maine Wire now. She holding the sword of truth. She was very excited. I was surprised. I was like, "Do you want to hold the sword of truth?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so she got up and we got a picture, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I got to tell you, Chuck, I go to a lot of events. I'm out quite a bit. That might have been the best event I've been to this calendar year in 2026. It's only June, so it's not over yet. But what a great event. I'd driven by that place, a number of times, never really had any idea of like really what was inside. But I mean, the weather, was a great night and it was a great event. It was very kind of low key, but, very classy and professional. And the sword of truth was definitely very popular that night. So yeah, it was a great event. So kudos to you for hosting that event.
Yeah, I think it was nice. I did not expect other media to show up. And I was not 100% certain what I was going to do when I found out they were there. But we let them in. They did a okay piece on, I think it was Channel 6, that didn't negatively present. They didn't present what we were doing in a negative light, which I thought is very unlike the mainstream media. And so there's that. Obviously, we appreciate the Maine Wire media more, but it was also interesting to get some positive, we'll call it positive press. And they didn't quote anybody out of context, which is nice. But yeah, it was a great night.
Pretty scary. Pretty scary. You have to worry about that in 2026 if the media is going to portray a very nice event accurately. But your concerns are legitimate. That's for sure.
Well, I actually had a conversation with the guy who did it off the record about that. Like, I didn't even say it was off the record, but he didn't record it or report it at all. But talked about how it was interesting. Like, he had some concerns that our society is like fracturing, and he made the comment that, we as a society are losing faith in institutions, and that's something that really concerns him. And I said, I agree. That is very concerning. Like. But we as a society have lost faith in institutions, but why? And this is where I went and I made a comment. I didn't go into it because I didn't want to have the trans fight with him, but I referenced the idea that there are people who are professionals in a field who are telling you something that is not true. You just know it's not true. A boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. There's no other option here. A boy cannot become a girl cannot become a boy. This is basic biology, basic fact. And it just, it's irrefutable. But instead, I went to another place, partly because I wanted to I know that his mind was starting to go to this one, and so I was like, well, there's one example I used was during 2020 into 2021, when Trump signed the CARES Act, and this is not me blaming all the inflation on Trump, that's not the point here, but when the CARES Act was signed, I knew, and anybody who really knows anything about economics knew, that the amount of money that was being flooded into the world in order to help the economy not collapse as a result of the shutdown that states, not the federal government, by the way, it was states, including some conservative states, that shut down the U.S. economy. That ultimately that money that was being printed, and later the HEROES Act, and then Biden put it on turbo with the IRA, but we knew, that's the IRA being the inflation causing, but the Inflation Reduction Act, right? When these things happen, anybody who knows anything about economics knew that we were going to have incredible amounts of inflation, right? But in 2021, late 2021, when that was finally starting to hit, which it actually surprised me that it took that long, but I think major corporations were taking the hit initially because they didn't want to see like all the negative press and all that other kind of stuff. So they initially took the hit. So anyway, 2021, when that first starts coming, Jerome Powell says that inflation is just transitory. It's supply chain disruptions. Now, to be fair, there was an impact from supply chain disruptions. That was part of what was causing the rise in prices. But obviously, as we know, as we've continued to see for the past however many years, where we're still seeing the effects and seeing inflation not completely come down, that it was inflation. And the reality is the chair of the Federal Reserve absolutely knew that that's what it was and that's what was coming. And so when you have somebody who's willing to so blatantly lie at such a high level to the people of America, like, it makes it difficult to trust institutions. And so you've got the medical practice telling us things that we know are not true. You've got all of our other institutions that are telling us stuff that we know is not true. Yeah, we're going to have a distrust in institutions. We're going to distrust the mainstream media because they're purporting that same lie and presenting it as fact and citing simply that the institutions believe it, and therefore we need to trust them. And it's like, you got to earn trust. You had trust. You've lost trust. Now you have to earn it back.
Right. 100%.
And that's where organizations like the Maine Wire we're very fortunate to have, because the people who were in place have decided that lying to the American people, the people of Maine, in order to benefit the people that are supporting them financially, essentially one way or the other, is more beneficial than telling the truth. Like that's how we get here. And so there's an easy correction. I think one of the things that Steve Robinson, when he was at the Lincoln dinner in Cumberland County, he made the comment essentially that, like, if the mainstream media just decides to start doing its job, then he wins. Like, he doesn't care. Like, if the mainstream media got so good at telling the truth that the Maine Wire was unnecessary, we wouldn't care. None of us would care, because then the truth is being presented to the American people. But they've chosen not to do that, and so it makes the Maine Wire necessary. I think Maine Wire is here to stay going forward. But like, the point is that all that needed to happen in order for me to not be here, the Maine Wire to not be doing what it's doing, is the media, the traditional media, to actually do its job. And bring the news to the people unfiltered as much as possible. And what's interesting, I'll say this, because I think I might have even said this to that guy from WCSH 6, that oh gosh, and then I lost my thought. I got focused on that. Anyway, the mainstream media is. We would love to have them tell the truth. I don't know where my thought went, but it's gone now. That happens.
But yeah, I mean, the gaslighting that I see with the media it truly is mind-boggling. It truly is I can be at the exact same event and then read my coverage. And I'm not saying, I'm perfect, and I do write with a more conservative view, but I write with quotes. I write with, what happens, and then I see things and go, were you in the same room as I was? Like,
Well, going
were,
back
were
to,
you,
I remembered. I remember what I was thinking, and then I'll love to have you fit. But like, because one of the things that I actually appreciate, there was this time where I was like, "Can we get unbiased news?" And a pastor friend of mine was like, "No, it's not. Everybody is biased. Everybody has a bias that they carry with them."
Sure.
And so like, there's this
Everybody does,
idea from the mainstream media. They pretend that they are unbiased. They pretend that they're politically neutral. They're just presenting the facts and the truth, right? They're not being honest. At least the Maine Wire and people like you, John, like, you're open about the fact that, look, you're a conservative. You're not pretending to be an independent journalist. I mean, you are an independent journalist, but you're not pretending to be that you don't have a conservative worldview. You're recognizing and open about where your bias is, so that people know and they can make their own judgment based on the facts that are presented and your perspective. Whereas the mainstream media pretends, no, we're neutral. We're just telling you the facts. We're just telling you the truth. This is what happened. And what happened stretches truth at the very least, if not blatant lies.
There you go. Very, very well said. Very well said. Yeah, I mean, but it's a time in America where access to information is so much easier now than it's ever been, and I think it gets even more easy to get access to information, but people still seem less informed nowadays than they used to. Like, what's a good turnout today in the primary? Like 30%.
That would be
if I went to the Maine Mall right now, with my camera, I'd probably be told to leave. But let's just say I did, and I interviewed 50 people and said, to them, did you know today's election day? Did you vote? I think the majority of people I would talk to would be like, no, I didn't know today was election day, or no, I haven't voted yet. So, so it's, kind of scary time. People aren't paying attention. So I am actually at a polling location right now. I mean, I would tell you that there's some pretty good activity as well here as well. So
yeah, it's interesting.
Just pulled up in Saco, and there's a lot of foot traffic. Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's good. We need more people, but like, to your point about being informed, yeah, we have access to more information, more easy access to know more about our candidates, especially with the use of social media and all the additional data that's out there than ever before. And I still find people being like, who are the candidates? And I'm like, I mean, what? Excuse, look, I don't want to shame people, but like, part of the problem is what we're trying to combat, both you guys with the Maine Wire and me with my podcast, which is that people are far too focused on what's happening in Iran, and they have no idea what's happening here locally. And
all politics is local. All politics is local.
We need to do what we can. And this is where, like, in order to get the information out there, we need people at home. We need people, talking to other people. Like, there are people who I believe will vote today because I sent them a text message this morning, right? Like, so I don't just say it, I do it, right? Like, I thought this morning, I was like, who needs a reminder? And I texted a guy, and while we've been on this podcast, he sent me a text saying, thank you, I'm here at the Westbrook Community Center. He's voting right now because I sent that text. This is the reality. We need to be those type of people. We need to encourage people to get out to vote, and then we need to encourage them to be educated as much as possible. I almost wish that I had done up some more stuff to kind of like outline, the differences between the candidates and all that other kind of stuff. I think my podcast have done a little bit of that, but I think like having more easy access. But like, the truth is, again, to your point, we have the easiest access that we've ever had, and people are still uninformed. And so I think the people of Maine need to decide that they actually care, they want to know, and they want to be informed.
Well, and I think a lot of the blame can go around though too, is because I think a lot of people are disenfranchised with the world right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this is Republican, Democrat, Independent, Democrat, Socialist. If people just did what they said they were going to do, wouldn't the world just be a better place? If I tell you I'm going to do something, it's a core value of mine that I'm going to do it. I might not do it as well as I wanted to do, but I'm going to try to do it. If just elected people like that got into office would do just what they said they were going to do when they were running as a campaigner, I think the world would be a better place. I think people would be more happy with politics. But you just look at the current climate now. You've got a fraud problem in Maine. The Democrats will tell you you don't have a fraud problem in Maine. The Republicans will tell you you have a fraud problem. But what do your eyes tell you? The eyes tell me I go to a lot of places and I find a lot of fraud. So there is a lot of fraud. But, the Democrats don't. The Democrats are running for governor in Maine against Donald Trump. And I think a fair conversation is what has Donald Trump done to affect your life? Well, this year, the Iran war, your gas prices have gone up. So I think that's a fair conversation. I think the bigger picture part of that conversation is we don't want the world to have Iran to have a nuclear bomb and a short-term disruption. Yeah. And I think it's going to be longer than a short-term disruption of gas prices. Is that worth it? I think that's a healthy conversation. I don't think it's a good thing for Republicans right now if we go into the fall and this conflict is still going on and people have to fill up their oil tanks right before the election. I think it's going to be a bad optic for Republicans. But other than gas prices right now, how has Donald Trump really affected anybody's lives in Maine? But every Democrat is running against Donald Trump. And then on the Republican side, most of the Republicans are talking about, bringing back sense and, common sense to Maine politics. So who's going to be right? Who's going to be wrong? But I mean, Maine doesn't have a Donald Trump problem is what I'm saying. Maine's got a one-party rule Democrat party. And even Democrats should be mad about the fraud in Maine because all that fraud means that Democrats can't get other projects that are, have been historically Democrat, based. You just go to the Maine Wire and you look at, the portraits that I did with gubernatorial candidates walking through Portland, or you watch what Joe Sokol has done up in the great work he's done up in Bangor, exposing, the human tragedies going up in Bangor. You look at some of the coverage that I've done in Lewiston, and you're going to tell me that we're taking care of our most vulnerable in this state? We're not. So, and is that on Donald Trump? I don't think it is, but I think it is on, the Democrat one-party leadership here in Maine. So vote accordingly is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there is a lot of, I think people feeling like they're disenfranchised, I think feeling homeless because candidates are not doing what they say they're going to do. But at the same time, what's really interesting, I mean, one of the things that's just so fascinating to me, right, is you have a candidate right now who's running for an office. And this is a candidate who has a long history of doing exactly what they said they were going to do. And they're also a candidate that so many people today are like, I'm tired of the partisanship. I'm tired of the division. I'm tired of all that stuff. And this candidate is like one of the most bipartisan candidates ever. And yet, whether it's Democrat or Republican, there seems to be a lot of hate for this candidate, right? And so it's really fascinating that you have one of the most open and honest candidates. And I do think the Republicans will solidify around her, but Susan Collins is who I'm talking about, where the Democrats say, if you just had a candidate with integrity, well, we've got one, right? If you just had a candidate that did what they said they were going to do, well, we've got one. If you just had a candidate that opposed Donald Trump, well, we've got one, right? When she disagrees with him, she doesn't disagree with him always, right? But when she doesn't agree with whether it's a procedural thing or not, she votes her conscience. She votes according to the way that she told the American people, the people of Maine, that she was going to vote. And she gets attacked from the left. She gets attacked from the right. And yet she just keeps doing what she believes is in the best interest of Maine. Now, I don't agree with her on everything, but again, it's just
but do you agree with your wife on everything? Do you agree with your best friend on everything?
No, sir.
You don't.
Especially when it comes to movies. These people, they don't understand good movies.
No, but I mean,
yeah.
I'm quoting Reagan a lot here today, but because I'm a big Reagan fan. But if you agree with somebody 80% of the time, they're your friend. They're not your enemy. I mean,
Right.
like, you're not. I mean, if I can get my wife to agree with 80% of anything that I do, I'm having a really good day. And okay, because she didn't vote exactly the way you wanted every time. Okay, I understand that. It's fair criticism. I mean, she has looked me in the eye and has assured me that she's going to vote for the clean version of the SAVE Act. And
Yep. Yep.
she voted against some preliminary stuff the other day. And I want to actually, some people were like, "Oh, she voted against the SAVE Act." No, she voted against the preliminary thing. She only wants, Americans to vote in elections. And voter ID is very, very important to her. So I mean, Susan Collins is a class act. Graham Platner is not. I mean, it's very obvious. And I think that, that race will come down to character and, character and experience, I think is what it will come down to.
Yeah, I don't think character matters for the Democrats, the hard line, like radical Democrats that exist. I do think your moderate Democrats who are paying attention to the fact that if we lose Susan Collins, then we lose the chair of the Appropriations Committee, which will have a dramatic impact on the economics, because the Democrats are destroying Maine. And part of the reason it hasn't been as bad as it could be is because Susan Collins has been getting funds from the federal government to help Maine. And so anyway, so she losing that, and I think a lot of your non-crazy leftist Democrats, because some of them do exist, will not vote for Platner. They will vote for Susan Collins. Right. Independents, I have to believe that independents in Maine, that character will matter, because independents in Maine are independent for a reason. They're not generally radical communists. And so, right. I think like what is attractive initially to them about Graham Platner is that he can speak. He again, when he's got his script, and he's a younger person. And I think in general, we're tired of older politicians. However, I think once they look at the details, they're going to come to the conclusion that this guy, he might be young, but he's like got so many issues that are unresolved, such as I think one of the worst things he did was push out his his wife to do basically an apology video for him. That's not what it was. The thing is interesting is he's never apologized, actually. Like he just says, I was a different man back then. That's if you think that's an apology, then you all probably also believe that professional athletes' apology videos are actually apologies. My favorite, though, is Charles Barkley, who Charles Barkley, after he said that he wanted to punch Draymond Green, basically is like, I shouldn't have said it. I meant it, but I shouldn't have said it. I'm like, that is the most honest apology video. Anyway, because it's not an apology. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, like Graham Platner he's terrible. So
I only got about 5 more minutes because I think they're going to kick me out of here. But
Well, anyway, the big picture today is vote for, get out and vote for your conscience, vote for the candidate you would think, has the best chance of winning in November, keeping in mind that, we have to win a statewide election that, our beloved Donald Trump, who is less popular today than he was 2 years ago, lost by 6.5%. Now, should he be less popular? We can make arguments about that. But the reality is he is less popular, and he lost Maine by 6.5%. So I don't, we have to take that and a lot of other things in such as what candidate is most likely to encourage voter turnout. Like these are things that have to come into play as we think about our candidate. So I encourage you to get out and vote. Thank you, John, for always coming on. Any last
My
minute,
pleasure.
I wish we'd have more time to talk about. I meant to get here, but we run out of time to talk about the Lewiston gun event, which you can find. The video is all on the Maine Wire social media on their YouTube page, I think, if you want to watch that, where you dealt with the youth gun violence there in Lewiston, which was an event that I had hoped to get to, but unfortunately was unable to.
Well, it was the first of many conversations going forward. So thank you for mentioning that. Like Chuck said, check out the Maine Wire social media, Facebook. It's got it pinned up there if you want to see what's going on. And get out and vote today. and always a pleasure to join you, Chuck.
All right. Thanks so much, John. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back